What's going on, Not Move Nation? Today is October 12th at 9:14 a.m. Eastern Time. Welcome to the Not Move podcast. I'll give some people some time to join. In the meantime and in between time, let's go over a little bit of weather updates. I'm looking at rotogrinders.com. It says that the Cowboys at Carolina game could see some light rain showers, not a true downpour. Wind should come in at 15 miles per hour, perhaps with wind gust up to 30 miles per hour, which could impact longer field goals and deep throws. But overall, it shouldn't impact the game too significantly. And then the Rams at Baltimore, they're saying that it's very similar to that game that we just talked about, the Dallas and Carolina game. Some off and on light rain is possible, but it's more off than on. Wind gusts around 15 miles per hour, up to 30 miles per hour. It's not ideal for long field goals or deep throws, but it shouldn't impact most plays, is what they're saying. There's a couple of other games with 10-mile-per-hour winds. Seattle at Jacksonville, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. So overall, it's looking pretty good. But we are starting to get into that season, where wind can definitely become more of a factor. Let's go, boys. Hey, you too, Ivan. Thanks for joining today. There's a northeastern here in the East Coast today. Okay. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm also going to just give you guys a rundown on injury updates, and then we'll start breaking down these games one by one. Lamar Jackson out for Baltimore today. Cooper Rush looks like he's going to be starting for Baltimore. Jamar Chase, questionable but with an illness, wide receiver for Cincinnati Bengals. Questionable with an illness, was expected to play, according to the FanDuel Daily Fantasy app. I think they do a great job with player updates. CeeDee Lamb ruled out for Sunday's game against the Panthers. Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb out. Omarion Hampton, running back for the Chargers. As many of you know, he's on the IR. Bucky Irving out today for Tampa Bay. So Rachaad White, should see some increased usage there. Mac Jones is questionable, but is expected to play and start for the San Francisco 49ers quarterback since Brock Purdy is out. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver for Chargers, technically questionable, but is trending toward missing the matchup. Man, that's a big hit for the Chargers. Not only are they, without Omarion Hampton, but looks like Quentin Johnston might not play today. Kyler Murray, questionable. And I'm seeing that he's likely to be sidelined in this game. So Jacoby Brissett looks like he's going to start. Let me just go write that in my notes here. Hope everybody's having a great morning. Thank you guys for joining. So yeah, Kyler Murray looking to be out. Jacoby Brissett looking like he's going to be in. Chuba Hubbard out today, running back for Carolina. So Rico Dowdle looks like he'll be, serving that leading role against his former team today within the Dallas Cowboys. Mike Evans out for Tampa Bay. Alvin Kamara, questionable, but is expected to play. Zay Flowers, wide receiver for Baltimore, questionable, but is expected to suit up. Deebo Samuel, that's a Monday night game, so we still have time for that, but he's technically questionable right now. Brock Bowers out for Las Vegas today against Tennessee. So it looks like I think it was what Michael Mayer was expected to start today for Las Vegas. Yeah, Michael Mayer. Ricky Pearsall out, wide receiver for San Francisco. Jawan Jennings, once again, that game's tomorrow. Tomorrow night. Or no, that's today. Questionable. Jawan Jennings, wide receiver for San Francisco, but is expected to suit up. And that looks like about it. Terry McLaurin out today or tomorrow night, it looks like. For Washington, wide receiver, ruled out Monday's game against the Bears. So Terry McLaurin won't be playing tomorrow night. Dalton Kincaid in that game tomorrow night, questionable. Mooney out. Kevontae Turpin, wide receiver for Dallas, out today. So, Cowboys have 2 receivers out today. And then Brenton Strange, he's on the IR, tight end for Jacksonville. Chris Godwin out. Miles Sanders out. We can talk about the other games tomorrow. Tutu Atwell, questionable today for the Rams, wide receiver for the Rams. And that Zay Jones, wide receiver for Arizona, questionable today. And that looks like about it. So, if you guys have any questions on player props or anything like that, any games, feel free to let me know. So, we got a game starting here pretty soon within the next 10 minutes. JB and I already broke that game down. There's a video on YouTube if you want to go check that out, if you haven't already. So, Arizona at Indianapolis. The all-time series is tied 9-9 between these teams. However, the Colts are 4-2 all-time against the Arizona Cardinals. The Colts won one of those games by 10-plus points. The line was 7 when I checked earlier this week, and now I'm seeing that Indianapolis is favored by 9.5. And my guess is because Kyler Murray is expected to be out. Indianapolis, I see that they have a huge passing advantage in this game. And with Kyler Murray being out, one has to expect that passing advantage will be even more significant. The line and passing play percentage suggests that Indianapolis will call a high percentage of rushing plays today, and Arizona will call a high percentage of passing plays. Indianapolis ranks 28th in passing play percentage, so there's not a whole lot of teams that call a higher percentage of rushing plays than Indianapolis. They'd like to run the ball. So if you like Jonathan Taylor today, you got that working for you. Arizona, when I checked earlier this week, they didn't rank in the top 10 or bottom 10 in rushing yards allowed to running backs. So they're somewhere in between there. But Arizona's rush defense honestly hasn't been bad this year. They rank 8th in rushing yards allowed per game. So, I would figure that Jonathan Taylor would get a nice workload today. But I didn't dive into his player props, but that would be definitely something that I'd be interested in. Now, Arizona's biggest defensive vulnerability, positional defensive vulnerability, is receptions allowed to tight ends. So, it concerns me a little bit to take a receiving prop for a team that, is likely to run the ball a lot today. But if I were to target something receiving wise, it would be Tyler Warren. Now, it's tougher for me to pinpoint, and I've mentioned this on previous shows, it's tougher for me to pinpoint rookie props. But Arizona ranks second worst in the league. So they allow the second most, when I checked at the start of the week, the second most receptions to tight ends. Last that I saw, Tyler Warren's reception line was at 4.5, and he's gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this season. And then Arizona also ranks fifth worst in receiving yards allowed to tight ends. So Tyler Warren, last that I checked, 51.5 receiving yards, and he's gone over that in 3 out of 5 games this season. Now let's look at maybe where Arizona can capitalize in this game. Indianapolis's biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receptions allowed to wide receivers. They allow the 7th most receiving yards to wide receivers and the 4th most receptions allowed. Oh, no, hold on. Let me backtrack. That was Arizona. Sorry about that. Indianapolis allows the 4th most receiving yards to wide receivers and the 2nd most receptions to wide receivers. You know, you have Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson. We mentioned Zay Jones is questionable. So those would be 2 guys that I would be looking at here. Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson. Let's go see their target share. McBride leads the team in target share with 42 targets this year, but then out of the wide receivers, it's Marvin Harrison and then Michael Wilson. So, I'd probably be leaning towards Marvin Harrison in this one. So Marvin Harrison's over-under on receptions, last that I saw, was at 4.5. He's gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this year, 7 out of 17 games in 2024. He's never played against the Colts, ranked 2nd in target share. Michael Wilson's only gone over his 2.5 reception line in 1 out of 5 games this season, and he's never played against the Colts. And then, but receiving yards, if you're interested in Marvin Harrison receiving yards, I could definitely see that hitting today. He's gone over that in 3 out of 5 games this season, 7 out of 17 in 2024. Has never played against the Colts, as I mentioned just a minute ago, and ranks 2nd on the team in target share. But, Indianapolis, they rank 19th in passing yards allowed per game. They rank 12th in rushing yards allowed per game. So not only do I expect Arizona to pass today, because of reasons I've already stated, but, Indianapolis, relative to the other teams in the league, have been more vulnerable to the pass. And, if Indianapolis doesn't get it going on the ground today, I think they can have extreme success through the air. They rank 4th in passing yards per game. Arizona ranks 28th in passing yards allowed per game. If you think Arizona's going to, surprise people and keep it relatively close and make Indianapolis, kind of forced to throw the ball, I'm thinking Alec Pierce, man. Alec Pierce, Arizona ranks 16th in opponent yards per completion, and Pierce ranks 3rd in the NFL in receiving yards per catch. He's gone over his 30.5 receiving line in 3 out of 3 games this season, 10 out of 16 in 2024. And Arizona also ranks 7th worst in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. I have in my notes here that I would lean more towards that than his receptions, although I could see his receptions hitting. He's gone over the 2.5 receptions in 2 out of 3 games this season. Went over in 7 out of 16 in 2024. So that's probably the guy that I'd be looking at for this Colts receiving unit. But unless you guys have any other questions on this game, I'm just going to go ahead and give my prediction and move on. But let me just give you a couple of other things here. I already mentioned Indianapolis has a huge passing advantage, a slight rushing advantage, but it could be a little bit more than a slight rushing advantage since James Conner and Trey Benson are out. Looks like Michael Carter is going to be starting today. Maybe DeMercado working in the mix. Indianapolis, good size third down conversion advantage, a big red zone attempts per game advantage, huge sacks on the quarterback advantage, huge turnover differential advantage. I got to lean towards the Colts on this spread, and let's move on. Yeah, once again, if you guys have any specific player prop questions, feel free to ask. I can stop what I'm doing and address some questions for you guys. We can do a little bit of research on the fly if I don't have it already. Chargers at Miami, not really a game that I'm looking to target. We'll see. Who you like in the first game? I was distracted by my other half. All good, Ivan. We made a show about this earlier this week, but I like Denver on the spread in this one. Denver on the spread. I see Denver has a good size passing advantage, a good size rushing advantage. Oh, I love that, Ivan. I love Tua rushing yards. Anyways, I just see a lot of advantages for Denver. I've heard some chatter about how the Jets are going to potentially upset the Broncos today. I don't see it happening, but I could be wrong. My favorite player prop in that game was the Dobbins over 69.5 rushing yards. He's gone over that in 4 out of 5 games this season. The Jets are bad at defending against that rushing attack in regards to yards allowed per game. They rank 20th in opponent rushing yards per attempt, and Dobbins ranks 10th in rushing yards per carry. He's also averaged more yards per carry on turf than grass in 3 out of 4 seasons. From my understanding, this game is going to be played on turf, so that's beneficial for him. Harvey, I think, could have some big runs in this game. But, yeah, overall, and, I mentioned that in the show that I did that Justin Fields, man, it's not looking good for his rushing yards. Watch him break out for a 50-yard rush first play. No, but honestly, Denver ranks first in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks this year. They've played, who was it, Daniel Jones and Jalen Hurts, and held both of those guys to like 6 yards or something like that. So I think the Jets have their hands full today. If there were some guys I'd be looking at for the Jets, be Garrett Wilson receptions and Breece Hall receiving yards. I would talk about that a little bit more, but there's not a lot of time for that game to start. So, yeah, let's move on to the Charger-Miami game. Ivan says that he likes Tua's rushing yards today. I agree with that, man. So the line suggests and the passing play percentage suggests that Miami will throw the ball a lot today. They actually call the second highest passing plays percentage-wise out of every other team in the league. Now, the Chargers call the fourth most, but the Chargers may be able to call a little bit more rushing plays today. I know they're without, their main guy, Hampton. But, if they get up and are ahead in the later stages of the game, Miami will be, passing the ball, which I think, opens up more opportunity for Tua to get his rushing yards. Last that I checked, over under 3.5. All right. He's gone over that in 4 out of 5 games this season. He only went over that in 4 out of 11 games in 2024, but he went over that in 2 out of 3 career games against the Chargers. Also, the Chargers rank second worst. So they've allowed the second most rushing yards to quarterbacks this year. I like it. The Chargers also overall rank 18th in rushing yards allowed per game. They also rank 27th in opponent rushing yards per attempt. So opponents are getting big rushing gains when they're facing the Chargers. And in fact, they're getting big gains when they're facing the Dolphins too. I think Hampton would have had a very explosive game, man. This is a great spot for Hampton if you were in this game. And I'm not saying that it's not for these other guys. I didn't look into these other guys as props. It looks like Haskins is going to be starting for the Chargers. I mean, he's in a good spot. I think what it comes down to is, who's going to get that workload? Are they going to share carries in that backfield? Is Haskins going to be the workhorse? That's what I would look up. And I think there is some extreme value in looking that information up if you're interested in that, because Miami's biggest positional defensive vulnerability is rushing yards allowed to running backs. They rank worst in the NFL in rushing yards allowed to running backs. Okay. They also rank worst in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game. So I think there's some true value there that may go overlooked because nobody really knows about Haskins and maybe some of these other Miami running backs. And I didn't have the time to look at that thoroughly as much as I wanted to because there's so many games on today. So when I do these shows on Sunday, I have less time to absolutely zone in on spots that I like, but I have a general idea of where I'm going. When I do those single game shows, we can zone in on props a whole lot more, and and look at things that we don't normally look at, like red zone targets and grass versus turf splits and all types of things. But these shows are a little bit more general, but I do still have some specific information here. Ivan, you said Tua rushing yards. I think somebody else to look for here is Herbert rushing yards. The last that I checked, his over-under on rushing yards was 22.5. The Dolphins rank fourth worst in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. Herbert's gone over that line in 4 out of 5 games this season. Now, he only went over that in 33% of his games in 2024. And he's 0-2 in career games against Miami, but he's had a rushing touchdown in both games. If you guys are looking for maybe a sleepy touchdown score in this game, once again, Herbert has had a rushing touchdown in 2 out of 2 career games against the Dolphins. Waller, anytime touchdown, asks Ivan. Let's go take a look here. Waller, Dolphins. What I will say is the Chargers rank 4th best in receiving yards allowed to tight ends this year and 3rd best in receptions allowed to tight ends. So I think that's a bit problematic. But let's go look at Darren Waller. Let's go look at a couple things here. I'm looking at fantasy.nfl.com, okay? And we're going to filter this by tight end receiving touchdowns allowed by the Chargers this year. The reason why I haven't really looked at this as much on previous shows is because we don't have a big sample size, okay? The most touchdowns that have been allowed by a team to a tight end this season is 5 by the Jets. All right, so as you can see, we don't have a lot of history to go off of. What I will say is that the Chargers have allowed 2 touchdowns to tight ends this season, which is about average. I think a better idea is looking at that 2024 season and where the Chargers allowed the fewest touchdowns to tight ends. So in that aspect, I'm nervous about it, about Waller anytime touchdown. Here's a positive from Miami, though, Ivan, is Miami, when they get into the red zone, they don't get into the red zone often, but when they do get into the red zone, they actually rank second best in touchdown conversion rate. But the Chargers rank second best in preventing opponents from scoring touchdowns when their opponents enter the red zone. So I think it's going to be tough for him. Let's look at his history against the Chargers, if there is any. Instead of going through each individual season, let me see if I can just type in Darren Waller stats against Chargers in my search engine here. I'm sure like StatMuse will come up. He's had a receiving touchdown, and it looks like 3 out of 7 career games. So more times than not, he hasn't. I would have to lean towards him not getting one today, Ivan, but I don't see enough information to make me completely steer you off of it if you do like it. Maybe you have some better information on that than I do. I would also be interested in not just target share, right? Although those numbers are going to be a little skewed depending on the source you look at, because right now I see Waller 4th in target share, but he hasn't played in every game this season, right? He's played in 2 games, and he's had it. Yeah, he's going off. He's had a touchdown, at least 1 touchdown in each of those games. So, if you have access, I think that's what a lot of this is about too. What information do you have access to? If you have access to red zone targets, I think that could help you, not just with this prop in particular, but in future props, and maybe I can do a better job in the future at providing you guys that information, because it is important. Oh, Jets up 3-0. Tua under 226.5 passing yards. I am a little concerned about that. But I could see it happening at the same time. So Tua, let me write this down. Passing yards. Here we go. We got JB coming in, looks like. Let me change the layout here and get JB up here.
I'm sorry, bro.
I don't know if he's ready to come up or not. Okay, so passing yards, Tua, 226.5 over under. So yeah, man, the Chargers, like I stated at the start, they rank 4th best in passing yards allowed per game. They also allow the 7th fewest passing yards to quarterbacks. But I think, Miami, they call a very high percentage of passing plays, and I expect them, especially to do that if they're trailing in the later stages of the game, which can get a bit sweaty. What's up, JB? Which can get a bit sweaty if
What's good?
It's
all good in the house.
So, but let's go look at Tua's game log, okay? How many times has he had 227 this year? 1, 2 out of 5 games. He's gone over. So more times than not, he's gone under.
Who does they play today?
Miami plays the Chargers.
Oh, yeah, good luck.
And then let's see, last season, how many times did he have 227 or more passing yards? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games. So that's not good for his under. But this is a new season. And then I want to look at his history against the Chargers. right now I'm leaning toward. Oh man, he had 446 passing yards in his last game against the Chargers back in 2023.
I did not know my camera.
That was probably his career high passing yards to that was against the Ravens. So it was close. It was 3 yards shy of his single game passing yard record. But yeah, he's gone over that in one career game against the Chargers. 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2, it looks like. 1 out of 3. I would have to lean towards the under there, Ivan.
I like the under with the Tua on that. Like I said,
Yeah.
Tua's he's just not doing it, man. And with Tyreek Hill being out, that's just another big weapon right there. It's just subtracting for the possibility of him actually doing anything like that,
Yep, good point.
And I think I could be wrong. I think there's some injuries with Waller. I don't think he's 100% healthy. I could be totally wrong.
I didn't see any injury concerns for Waller.
Okay.
Let me double check. Yeah, he looks good here. He's cleared. Here, you are right though, JB. He's been cleared to play despite limited practices.
That's what I thought. I knew that something was going on earlier this week. Like I said, I was just had a lot going on. Hey, thank you, Ivan. Yeah, bro. I had a couple things to do before I could do anything else. Early, bro. I was not waiting for this. I was like, man, no.
Yeah. Good to see you, JB. Good to hear you. Thanks for joining. So yeah, Ivan, I'd have to lean towards the under on that, and I'd have to lean towards Waller not getting that touchdown.
Yeah, I like Waller getting that touchdown. I like Waller.
Who do you like in this game, JB? Do you think the Chargers win this game by 5+?
I do. I really do. I just don't see. I just don't. I don't know, man. Miami, to me, man, was just so, wishy-washy. Just they really needed Tyreek Hill, I think, and I think the absence of Tyreek Hill makes them even worse. Lack of help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think they'll absolutely need Achane to step up today, and I think that he's in a decent position to. And here's why. The Chargers are more vulnerable to the rushing attack than the passing attack.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers they rank 27th in opponent rushing yards per attempt, and Achane ranks 25th in rushing yards per attempt. So I do think that Achane can have some big games here, but once again, Miami calls a high percentage of passing plays. So how often are they going to be feeding the ball to Achane? I think if you like Miami in this game, guys, if you like Miami to get ahead, Achane is a solid pick, Ivan. Because if let's say Miami's up, middle third quarter by 7, 10, something around that range. They're just trying to milk clock, feed Achane, and yep. I do think he's in a good situation here. But since I'm leaning towards the Chargers in this game as well, not a player that I'm looking at, but if Miami, if they can hang around, dude, I think he is worth a look. But let's talk about some other statistics on this game and move on unless you guys have any more questions about this game. Chargers, big passing advantage. Rushing advantage, I would give the Chargers a slight rushing advantage, and the only reason why I say slight is because Hampton is on the IR, and I don't know exactly what these backups are capable of. If Hampton was in, I would say that the Chargers have a huge rushing advantage. The Chargers have a good-sized third down conversion advantage, a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage, and those are the advantages I see. Miami, big red zone conversion advantage, slight red zone attempts per game advantage, and a slight turnover differential advantage. Overall, yeah, I see too many advantages for the Chargers in this one for me to steer away from the Chargers. Give me the Chargers here. Minus let's see what that line is. Chargers. Minus 4.5. Is that plus chicken? So maybe take it to minus, 3.5. Obviously, the lower you take it, the better. Not necessarily a spot that I love, but, that's the way I'd be leaning on it. See if we can find something that we love here today. Next game, New England Patriots at New Orleans Saints. New England leads the all-time series 10-6 against New Orleans. Last that I saw, New England was favored by 3.5 points. And they still are, according to the book that I'm looking at. I see that New England has a good size passing advantage. I see that the Saints have a slight rushing advantage. And New England has a slight third down conversion advantage, a slight red zone conversion advantage, a good sized red zone attempts per game advantage. And the Saints, I would say that they have a decent sized sacks on the quarterback advantage, and that's it. So overall, I see more advantages for New England in this game. The biggest positional defensive vulnerability that I see with New England is receiving yards allowed to tight ends. So New England ranked second worst in receiving yards allowed to tight ends. And I actually had a buddy text me earlier this week to, know my thoughts on Juwan Johnson. I think he could have a solid game. Let's go look at the Saints target share here. Juwan Johnson ranked second in target share on this Saints team. Receiving props, I probably should have had this, researched before I came onto the show today, but his receiving line is at 37.5. And, when we're looking at Juwan Johnson's game log this season, he's gone over that line in 3 out of 5 games. Against New England, let me see if he has any history against New England here. It'll take me just a moment or two.
New Orleans could be a little scary, to be honest with you. I mean, like they don't have anything to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've seen what. Oh my god, the Jets are they look great right now.
Do they really?
It's 3-3. Bo Nix is starting he's turned the ball over. They just got a punt return down back to the 20-yard line. Yeah, or a kick return. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
The Broncos are in trouble right now. But with the way that they played, man, I mean, they had, who was it? The Bills on the ropes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they had them on the ropes. Rattler has been playing decent. I'm not saying they could win. I'm just saying that, can't.
So it looks like Juwan Johnson went under that in his only career game against New England. New England, though, guys, ranks 26th in passing yards allowed per game. So New England is much better. I wouldn't say much better, but they are better at defending against no, I would. They are much better at defending against the run. They rank 4th in rushing yards allowed per game. They're vulnerable to the pass. If I'm New Orleans, yeah, that's where I'm, looking to go. Juwan Johnson, attack that vulnerability in New England's defense. I think also somebody worth consideration for the Saints is Shaheed. wide receiver for New Orleans. And the reason why I say that is because New England allows the third most yards per completion this season, and Shaheed ranks 43rd in yards per catch. I don't love Shaheed, but I think he's an honorable mention here. Now, New Orleans' biggest defensive vulnerability is receptions allowed to running backs. They allow the 6th most receptions to running backs. So, Stevenson, I was trying to find his line when I was doing my research, and I couldn't find any, but now looks like they have his over-under at 2.5. Stevenson, over-under 2.5 receptions. And I think that's why I didn't have these. Maybe the lines weren't out when I was looking at this game. Stevenson game log. Let's just go take a look at this real quick. And then let's also go see, Stevenson's target share. So New England, and we're looking for Stevenson's target share. Honestly, Travion Henderson has more targets than Ramondre Stevenson and more receptions. So maybe that's who we're supposed to look at here is Travion Henderson. Let me go see if I see a line for him. Yeah, 2.5. Henderson receptions over under 2.5. Now it's going to be tougher for me to pinpoint Henderson because he's a rookie and I don't have as much history to work with here. But I can give you a little slice of information here with Travion Henderson. He's had 3+ receptions in 2 out of 5 games this year. But if you wanted to play it on the safer side and say he gets 2+ receptions, he's 100% on that this year. He's had at least 2 receptions in every game. And once again, that's the biggest positional defensive vulnerability that I see with this New Orleans team. And then Ramondre Stevenson, let's just go take a look with his. He's gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this year as well. Let's go see if he has any history against New Orleans, make our prediction, and go on to the next game unless you guys had any other questions about this game. 0 for 1 against New Orleans in his career on that reception line. So I would have to lean more towards Travion Henderson. That would be a prop that I'd be looking to target. So Juwan Johnson, receiving yards, Travion Henderson, receptions would be the props that I'd be looking at. I understand New Orleans, JB says that they're not that bad.
Right.
I could see them, putting up a fight here. I think they're going to have to pass the ball well. I got to lean towards New England, though, to cover that spread. I just see more advantages for New England. Another prop, though, that I have wrote down here in this game was Drake May rushing yards potentially. The Saints allow the 7th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. Drake May has gone over Drake May has had 25+ rushing yards in 2 out of 5 games this season, 8 out of 13 in 2024, and he's never played against the Saints. If you were thinking about Drake May rushing yards, I think it's worth a look. But yeah, give me New England to win this game by 4+ points. What about you, JB?
Yeah,
Stephon Diggs says blessed up.
Yeah, I like the Patriots in that one.
Diggs, 6 receptions. Now, the Saints have allowed the 7th fewest receptions to wide receivers. Diggs game log. Diggs has had 6+ receptions in 3 out of 5 games this season. So that's good if you like his over. And then let's go see if he has any history against the Saints. And then target share. I'm sure he probably, he leads the team in target share. And I just want to backtrack with Travion Henderson. He ranks tied for 4th in target share on the team. So just wanted to give you guys that information. He's behind Diggs, Henry, Booty. But, Diggs. Let's just go see if he has any history against New Orleans. I think typing this up in my search engine is going to be quicker than looking at each individual season. Diggs versus Saints. Looks like he's played 4 career games against them, blessed up P, and he's had 6+ receptions in 4 out of 5 of those games. He's also had at least 1 touchdown in 4 out of 5 of those games. And as I mentioned earlier, New England has a slight red zone conversion advantage and a good size red zone attempts per game advantage. I could definitely see Diggs getting a touchdown in this one. We can also look at wide receiver touchdowns allowed by teams in 2024. Saints were a little above average, it looks like, in that regard. In 2025, wide receiver touchdowns allowed. The Saints have allowed 5, which is right about the middle of the pack. Saints actually rank 9th best in passing yards allowed per game. They rank 20th in rushing yards allowed per game, so they are more vulnerable to the rush. Also, the line suggests that New England may be able to call a few more rushing plays here today. But, I think I think those running backs for New England can have good rushing games, and if they get into the red zone, man, I think Stephon Diggs can definitely see a touchdown today. Diggs yards too. I would be leaning, although New Orleans has done good against the receptions, blessed up P, I like his current history and his history against the Saints, specifically with anytime touchdown. But also, the receptions look pretty good too, man. All right, let's keep it moving, keep it grooving. And Diggs, I don't know what his receiving yards are listed at. Let's see. Receiving yards, Diggs, 62.5, 63 or more. So he's had 63 or more receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games against the Saints as well. But, I'm just a little hesitant on it because the Saints have a pretty decent pass defense. They rank 9th in passing yards allowed per game.
True.
And they've allowed the 8th fewest receiving yards to wide receivers. But he does have good history against the Saints. I just don't – I don't see anything that's like, I love it, but I don't also see anything that where I'm like, no, blessed up P, don't do that. And a lot of these props are like that, There are props where I'm just like, whoa, this looks good. One of those props last week was who was it? The guy, David Montgomery, anytime touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
There was something that I was looking at for the Monday Night Football games tomorrow that looked good. It may be too good to be true. Maybe like this Denver game, right?
Everybody was calling this a trap game.
Yeah, but I just don't see I don't see the trap. I think Denver's going to come out on top, but they're down by what? They're down by 3. But looks like they're driving. Anyways, let's keep going on. We don't want to zone in on a game that's already going on here. Okay, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers has a 3-0 career record against Cleveland. Rodgers needs 351 more passing yards to move into fifth place over Roethlisberger on the all-time passing yards career leaders list. So if you like Rodgers for throwing for a bunch of yards today, I mean, I don't see it happening, but he does have an extra, motivation here. He can reach that milestone. Not saying that he can't reach that milestone next week or something. Flacco needs 3 touchdown passes to move into 21st place on the all-time passing touchdowns career leaders list. And Flacco has an 11-11 career record against Pittsburgh. So if you like Flacco today for touchdown passes, you got that working with you. Just the fact that he needs 3 touchdown passes to move up in the all-time passing touchdowns leaders list. Pittsburgh's favored by 5.5 last that I checked. Cleveland's defense is good. And I really didn't see any vulnerability with either of these defenses. I think one of the reasons why I couldn't pinpoint Pittsburgh's defensive vulnerability, I mean, it would have taken me some time, but it's because they had a bye week last week. So their defense against specific positions looks a little better than what it could be, because it's the source that I look at isn't per game. It's total throughout the season. So it's not, it's not taking into account that Pittsburgh was on a bye week. You know what I mean? So we'll try to see if we can pinpoint a vulnerability with Pittsburgh's defense. But, overall, Pittsburgh does rank 30th in passing yards allowed per game. So their pass defense has been very vulnerable this season. Rushing attack hasn't been much better, but it is better. They rank 19th in rushing yards allowed per game. The line suggests that Cleveland is going to call a high percentage of passing plays. Also, Cleveland's passing play percentage ranks 3rd. So Cleveland calls the third highest percentage of passing plays this season. But they've had a lot of different factors. You know what? This is Dylan Gabriel's second start. So, these numbers could be skewed a little bit for sure. I think, the numbers are very skewed in this game when I'm just looking at it. One team was on a bye week. The other team has had a recent quarterback change. But, if I'm looking for – I'm not saying Cleveland can't have success on the ground, because I think they definitely can. But I think, they have a better chance. What?
Touchdown Bo Nix.
Bobo.
Yep, touchdown passing.
Who'd he hit? Team total for Steelers. Let me go look, Ivan. Who did he hit, JB? Did you see? My guess is going to be Sutton. Or a tight end. My first guess is Sutton. Okay. So Pittsburgh team total. Yeah, this feels like a under type game too. That over under is set very low. But let's go look at team total. Pittsburgh 22.5. Blessed up, Pete. Team total Pitt 22.5. How many times has Pitt gone over that this season? 1 out of 1, 1 out of 2 games, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4. So that doesn't give us much information. What about Steelers versus Browns history? How many times has the Steelers had 23 plus points in their most recent matchups? 1 out of 1, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 4 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 5 out of 10. So that doesn't give me a whole lot to work with either. But let's see. Let's talk about Cleveland's defense a little bit here, though. Cleveland has allowed 22 plus points or 23 plus points in 0 for 1, 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5 games. I think also what we can do here, blessed up, I mean, this is I'm not saying that the information isn't findable, like quality information. So something that I would like to do is look at points per game for Pittsburgh this season when they are at home. They're averaging 17. Okay. Pitt is averaging 17 points per game at home this season. Cleveland, opponent points per game. On the road, Cleveland is allowing 32. So you get the average on that, which looks like it'd be towards the over, right? So, but I don't think we have enough data to really be doing this, right? But just based on that formula, looks like Pittsburgh's going to get about somewhere between it's 24.5 is the average. 24.5. So like 24, 25, 26, 27, just based on that one formula. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see this game going under 2. Let's talk about a little bit more current data. Pittsburgh ranks 27th in passing yards per game. Cleveland ranks 4th best in passing yards allowed per game. Pittsburgh doesn't have a good rushing attack. They rank 31st in rushing yards per game, and Cleveland ranks 1st in rushing yards allowed per game. So, I mean, yeah, gritty divisional game. Yeah, man. I mean, I think going based off of feel in this game is probably the way to go instead of statistical data. For one, I've already mentioned that this data in this game is probably a little skewed. But, it does feel like it's going to be that game, a gritty divisional game.
Yep.
Now let's go through. I see that Cleveland has a pretty good sized passing advantage, but they do have a different quarterback, as you guys know. I see that Cleveland has a slight rushing advantage in this game. But Pittsburgh has a good size third down conversion advantage, a slight red zone conversion advantage, a slight red zone attempts per game advantage, a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage, and a big turnover differential advantage. So the question is, what's going to be better, Cleveland's defense or Pittsburgh's offense? JB, how are you feeling?
Man, I don't even know on this one.
What about just a low-scoring game? Is that what you're feeling too?
Yeah, that's what I ultimately see. I just don't. Like I said, I just don't see a lot of scoring, and I'd see it being a pretty evenly matched in that aspect.
Yeah. I would love to see Sanders see some playing time. I mean,
I do too. Like, he's listed as the number 2 quarterback, right? I don't know. I think we could see him within a couple weeks. I know that there was something that came out, and I called week 8. By week 8, we could be seeing him.
Yeah, I don't know if we see him today or not, but it'd be cool. I'd love it. But yeah, this game's feeling like an under game to me, blessed up P. And something that we can do also. I'm not going to look into all the. I want to move on to some other games, but let's look at this over under record this year and move on. So Cleveland is 2-3 to the over. So more times than not, Cleveland's been involved in games that have gone under. Pittsburgh's 3-1 to the over. And then we can look in 2024 as well. Although these are two completely different teams. Cleveland was 7-10 to the over. So more times than not, they went under in those games. Pittsburgh, 8-10. So, yeah, I think this one's just a little bit based off feel. But if you're thinking Cleveland can hang around, I mean, I think somebody to look at is Jerry Jeudy. The reason why I say that is because Pittsburgh ranks 28th in opponent yards per completion, and Jeudy ranks 41st in yards per catch, which is best on the Browns. So I think Cleveland does have potential to get some big gains through the air, even not just with Jeudy, but Bond as well. He ranks 48th in yards per catch. So JB, I got to lean towards Pittsburgh in this game, minus the 5.5. I think I've taken all the favorites so far, right? New England, Chargers, real chalky this morning. But yeah, I got to lean towards Pittsburgh.
I picked Pittsburgh like all week. I'm picking Cleveland.
I can see it, dude. I can see it. I picked
them week 1. I lost week 1. I haven't picked them since. They had that quarterback trade, you know what I mean? Or change. Great defense. Pittsburgh's not really playing that well. They got problems on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side. They've had some injuries. I think that some of their injuries have come back, though. But I'm still going with Cleveland. I just think Cleveland's got a better defense. I think that they could really disrupt and cause some problems. I mean, shoot, we've seen in the past when Cleveland's not had as great of a defense and Pittsburgh's been better, and Cleveland come out on top, or very, very close game. So I got Cleveland.
Yeah, divisional matchup.
Cleveland, let's go.
I can see it, man. I can see it. As I mentioned before, I see Cleveland has a good sized passing advantage and a rushing advantage. Pittsburgh has some other advantages, but yeah, dude, I can see it being close. But give me Pittsburgh minus a 5.5. And let's move on to this Cowboys at Carolina Panthers game. The Cowboys lead the all-time series against the Panthers 12-5. The Cowboys have won the last 8 out of 10 games against the Panthers and have won 3 in a row against the Panthers. Dowdle is projected to be that starting running back today for Carolina. The Cowboys, he used to play for the Cowboys. The Cowboys didn't sign him, and Carolina picked him up in free agency. So Dowdle may be playing with an extra chip on his shoulder today. Last that I checked, Dallas is favored by 3 points in this one. CeeDee Lamb out, as I mentioned at the start of the show. Wide receiver for Dallas out. KaVontae Turpin, wide receiver for Dallas, out. So they're running a little thin at that wide receiver position. Miles Sanders out due to season-ending knee surgery. Jaden Blue should be that number 2 running back for the Dallas Cowboys. And then Chuba Hubbard's out. I think I'd already mentioned that. So Dowdle, right? So this is the Cowboys. The Cowboys, man, they rank 3rd in passing yards per game. Ferguson, yes, blessed up here. I like Ferguson. Let's just get into it, man. Carolina's biggest defensive vulnerability is receiving yards allowed to tight ends. Jake Ferguson, last that I saw, over under 49.5 receiving yards. He's only gone over this in 2 out of 5 games this season. He's only gone over that in 3 out of 14 games in 2024. And he's 0 for 2 throughout his career to the over against Carolina. But this would be a spot that I would maybe, say forget all of that information. This guy leads the Cowboys in target share. He has an 85% catch rate, which is really good. CeeDee Lamb's is out, and that's where Carolina is most vulnerable. Is receiving yards allowed to tight ends. I believe it was last year they allowed the most receiving touchdowns to tight ends. Yes, they did. And, we can go back and look to see if Jake Ferguson had a touchdown against Carolina in those career games that he's played against them. He did not in that game. And let's go check back in 2023. He has not ever had a touchdown. So the history isn't there, not just current history, but career history isn't there. But I think it's a good spot for Jake Ferguson. Let's see here. I think another decent spot that I have here is Javonte Williams over 2.5 receptions. Carolina ranks 10th worst in receptions allowed to running backs. Javonte Williams has gone over the 2.5 receptions in 4 out of 5 games this season. He went over that line in half of his games in 2024, and he's had 4 receptions in his only career game against Carolina, which was last season. He also ranks 4th on the team in target share, but now he ranks 3rd with CeeDee Lamb out. As a whole, right, Carolina ranks 10th best in passing yards allowed per game, but, Dallas has been real good at passing the ball this year. Carolina is more vulnerable to that rush. So I could see Javonte Williams and or even, I've heard good things about their number 2 running back, Jaden Blue. I could see them having some solid games, especially if you think Dallas is going to be up in this game. They're in Carolina. I'm sure the weather is bad today, says Blessed Up P. Yeah, I'm seeing, here on rotogrinders.com, and let me update this. They're saying here, off and on light rain showers are possible, not a true downpour. Wind should come in at 15 miles per hour, perhaps a thick higher with wind gusts at 30 miles per hour, which could impact longer field goals and deep throws. But overall, they're not thinking that it causes significant play calling changes, but it could, and what it comes down to is, excuse me, who can run the ball better. And I give Carolina a slight rushing advantage. But, both of these teams, it looks like, the best positional defensive vulnerability to take advantage of with either of these teams, I think, is Bryce Young rushing yards. I don't know what his line is, and I'm not going to look into it, but the Cowboys have allowed the 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. I think, the Cowboys, their biggest defensive vulnerabilities, positional-wise, passing yards allowed to quarterbacks, receiving yards to running backs, and receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. So if you like if there's any props on Dowdle, I think it's worth looking into. I'm not going to look into it on the fly here. But Dallas ranks worse in receiving yards allowed to running backs. So if you like Dowdle for receiving yards and even receptions, they allow the 2nd worst. Dallas's defense, specifically their pass defense, is atrocious. They rank 32nd in passing yards allowed per game in the NFL. I think somebody that we have to absolutely look at here, is Ted McMillan. The Cowboys allow the 4th most yards per completion, and Ted McMillan ranks 24th in yards per catch. Last that I saw, his receiving line was at 72.5, and he's gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this season. I don't have enough historical data on him, but, I think he's definitely somebody to look at. And even Leggett, 20.5 receiving yards. He went over that line in 12 out of 16 games in 2024. He had 2 receptions for 7 receiving yards in his only career game against Dallas. I saw something about Leggett doing an interview, too, earlier this week. And, if you know the story on that, then you know the story. If not, I'm not even going to mention it. But, I could see him playing with an extra chip on his shoulder today. But yeah, overall, I give Dallas a good-sized passing advantage, even though I think Carolina can take advantage of that. But Carolina, a slight rushing advantage. Carolina, slight third down conversion advantage. Dallas, slight red zone attempts per game advantage, a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage, and a slight turnover differential advantage. I, once again, have to go with the favorite here. Dallas minus that 3. But, JB, as you know, being a Cowboy fan, every time it feels like I think Dallas is going to win, they lose. Every time I feel like they're going to lose, they win. I feel like they win this one. So, but, I got to stick with them here. I got to stick with my Cowboys. They're 2-2-1 compared to Carolina's 2-3. Carolina, they're at home, though. They've won their only games this season at home.
I have the Carolina Panthers in this one. I should put it out there.
I don't blame
I got Carolina winning this. I think with the lackluster of Dallas's run defense, I think that they excel there, right? I think that Bryce Young, as long as he plays how he was playing, the last couple of weeks, it could really be a good game. And I see them taking the cake on it. I don't think I think Carolina wants it more. I think Carolina's hungrier than Dallas is. I think Carolina wins it, and I think it's by 7 points.
Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising, man. And what I do want to say, something about Rico Dowdle.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a good statistic on him. So, I don't think he has as good of a game as he does against as he did last week against the Dolphins. I mentioned him on the show against the Dolphins last week, and he had a monster game.
Yeah.
I don't think he has as good of a game here today, and that's a high bar to reach. 206 rushing yards, but I can see. I don't know what his line's at, but hear me out real quick. So last week, his rushing yards was over under 61.5, and he was 7-7 to the over on that line last season when he had 18 plus carries. And he had 23 carries last week and went well over that line. I don't know what his line is today. My guess is they're going to set that thing pretty high. Let me go look at this book real quick. Dowdle, 72.5. So it's what? Just a little bit higher. But let's go look at Dowdle last season. Let's see how many times he had 73 plus rushing yards when he had 18 plus carries. 0 for 1, 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7. So, if you like Dowdle's rushing yards today, I could definitely see that playing against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys, they don't have a good rush defense. They rank 23rd in rushing yards allowed per game. They're not as bad as Miami. But I could see, I would have to lean towards Dowdle going over his rushing yard line again today. You know, and as good as the Cowboys are at passing the ball, Carolina actually, um, limits wide receiver yards really well. And it goes back to what blessed up what Ivan said at the beginning of this game breakdown. Jake Ferguson for the Cowboys is somebody to look at. That's where Carolina's been most vulnerable. If you do like a Cowboys wide receiver today, I'd have to lean towards Pickens. He ranks 13th in yards per catch this year. And although Carolina's pass defense has been good, they've been allowing some decent sized gains when opponents are completing passes against them. They rank 20th in opponent yards per completion. And these Cowboy wide receivers, Flournoy, I think he could also be a sleepy play here for the Cowboys if you have props on him. But I'm personally not looking to target wide receivers for Dallas. But yeah, JB's got Carolina in this one. I got Dallas. Let's move on. What do you think about James Williams today? It's either Ferguson or Jay Williams balling if Carolina lets them. Jameson Williams for Detroit. Let's go. Right. We can go look at that. We can go look at that game.
I do too, Ivan. I do too. I smell an upset.
Right. I mean, you guys are probably right. You guys are probably.
I mean, it's not even about being right. Like I said, I mean, this game right here, I wanted to go over the Jets, but I'm gonna pick I'm picking the you know what I mean? The more liable choice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I haven't had an upset that I've picked yet, man, and let's see, but let's go answer the Jameson Williams question here, and we can break down the Chiefs game too if you want to while we're at it. Were you thinking of? I don't think, Ivan, were you saying Javonte Williams? Is that who you were thinking of since we were talking about the Cowboys game? Yeah, if I were to lean towards something with Javonte Williams, it'd be over the 2.5 receptions. But I hear Jaden Blue, the backup running back, is also a good pass catcher. But still, Javonte Williams, unless you can see information elsewhere, he should see the bulk of the snaps while he's on the field. Oh, you're good, man. You're good, Ivan. And then Carolina is more vulnerable to the rush than the pass. Carolina ranks 19th in opponent rushing yards per attempt. Javonte Williams ranks 6th in the NFL in rushing yards per carry. So I do think Javonte Williams can have some big gains here. Those are the two guys I'd be looking at for Dallas. Yeah. Javonte Williams, receptions, and Jake Ferguson, receiving yards. Okay, Seattle at Jacksonville. Seattle leads the all-time series 6-3 against Jacksonville. Seattle, last that I saw, is favored by 1.5. Brenton Strange was injured in that Chiefs game, and Jacksonville put him on the IR. So it looks like Hunter Long is expected to get Johnny Munt and Hunter Long expected to get some work today at that tight end position. So something that I saw that was really interesting about this Seattle team, and it just shows you how efficient that they have been. Seattle ranks 5th in passing yards per game. and they call the highest percentage of rushing plays in the league, or the second highest percentage of rushing plays in the league. That's incredible. I think there was a team like that last year. They had a very high percentage of. I think it was maybe even Philadelphia or Baltimore. Maybe it was Detroit. But that's how you know a team is really efficient when they are they rank fifth in passing yards per game, and they call the second highest percentage of rushing plays. And Jacksonville is vulnerable to the pass. They rank 27th in passing yards allowed per game. Seattle ranks 5th in passing yards per game. Although Seattle does have a bad pass defense as well, I do have to give Seattle the passing advantage in this one. In regards to rushing, I give Jacksonville a slight rushing advantage. Seattle, third down conversion advantage, a pretty good sized third down conversion advantage, a good sized red zone conversion advantage. Jacksonville, big red zone attempts per game advantage. Seattle, slight sacks on the quarterback advantage. And Jacksonville has a big turnover differential advantage. The biggest positional defensive vulnerability that I see with Seattle is receptions allowed to running backs. So if you like, ETN, let's go check.
Oh yeah, I think Jacksonville's got this one. I picked. I'm gonna be honest with you though. I picked Seattle, but on my official picks, but that back end pick though, I like Jacksonville with ATN. Reason I picked Seattle though is I think McDonald's defense is gonna do and have more of an effect on them than what Lawrence can take, right? I think Seattle's defense is going to really mess up Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence got lucky on his birthday, okay? You had 2 plays. I'll put it out there again. Chris Jones, out of here, man. 2 plays, 1 game. You let up 2 touchdowns to the quarterback within the 10-yard line frame, rushing in. You didn't stop him. I don't think Seattle makes that type of mistake. I don't think they have a player on their defensive side that's going to be that lazy. So I think that they take over that. Right?
And
I think
man, Jacksonville, when they played the Chiefs in that game, I mentioned Trevor Lawrence's rushing yards that day. I don't like Trevor Lawrence's rushing yards as much here in this game. Seattle didn't rank. The Chiefs allowed, I think it was like the second most rushing yards to quarterbacks that game. Seattle defends against that better. They didn't rank in the top 10 or bottom 10 when I was looking earlier this week, but they are better at defending against that. Somebody whose rushing yards that I was looking at in this one was Sam Darnold. I mean, Jacksonville has allowed the 8th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. Darnold's line was 6.5 last that I saw. He went over that in 2 out of 5 games this season, and he actually went over that in 12 out of 18 games in 2024. Went over that in 2 out of 4 games, career games against Jacksonville. Not a spot that I absolutely love, but I do lean towards him getting over that today. But yeah, ETN leads this team out of the running back corps in targets and receptions. ETN also, with Brenton Strange being out, I think could see an extra target here in this game. Target or 2. And receptions for ETN. I think both of those plays are worth consideration. Over 2.5 receptions, and then over the 14.5 receiving yards. Once again, Seattle allows the most receptions to running backs and the second most receiving yards to running backs. Also, Seattle is vulnerable to receptions allowed to tight ends. I think I would mention that. So I'm not going to look into it, but if you like the Hunter Long props or, Johnny Munt, then you got that working with you. And I think those would be the places that I would start if I were looking for player props to target in this game. And then Jacksonville's biggest positional defensive vulnerabilities are receiving yards allowed to running backs, which makes me put an eye on Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. Receptions allowed to running backs, and receptions allowed to wide receivers. So I think, targeting pass catching backs in this game is really the route that I would go. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet's receiving yards over under 10.5, and both of their receptions were also listed at 1.5 last that I saw. And, we can look real quick to see who's getting more targets out of those two, and it's Kenneth Walker this season. But I think Charbonnet missed some time, if I'm not mistaken. So it could be a little bit more even. Let's go. No. Well, it looks like he maybe missed one game. Seahawks. Let me just go look at Seattle real quick. Let me just go look at their last game to see who was targeted more. That could maybe give us a decent idea here. I got too many things up right now. Okay. Yeah, we can exit the Darren Waller stuff here.
Yeah, man, I be doing that all the time.
Yeah, we get to talking about stuff, and I just got a bunch of tabs open.
Million tabs open, yep.
So
the price we pay.
I mean, I would expect both of them to see the same amount of targets and receiving yards. I guess I would probably just go back to see who, who's had a better current season in regards to receiving yards and receptions, who's had a better 2024 line, and who's had a better career against Jacksonville in that regard. So those were the player props. I didn't have the time to look those up, but I do have them wrote down. Trevor Lawrence passing yards, something that I, have on my radar here because Seattle ranks 6th worst in passing yards allowed to quarterbacks. But Trevor Lawrence has only gone over the 226.5 passing yard line in 1 out of 5 games this season, only 2 out of 10 times in 2024. But he did go over that line in his only career game against Seattle. I just want to give you guys some stats right here, to maybe help you here. Sam Darnold, I see that Jacksonville, allows the 5th most passing yards to quarterbacks. Sam Darnold's line was at 243.5 last that I saw. He went over that in 10 out of 18 games in 2024, but he's 0 for 4 in career games against Jacksonville to that over. So that's not good history if you're thinking about Sam Darnold passing. Obviously, JSN, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton. I mean, these are guys that could have good games for this Seattle team. Jacksonville is allowing a good amount of yardage per completion, and JSN ranks 12th in yards per catch. Jacksonville, like I stated earlier, they're weak against that pass. I could see JSN having a good game. That's the guy I would be leaning towards. Second guy to go over his receiving yards would probably be Torrey Horton, since he ranks 50th in yards per catch. And once again, Jacksonville's allowing a good amount of passing yards per completion to opposing teams. I'm torn about this game. I still think that there are enough Jacksonville doubters out there. Well, let's run through this again. Seattle, passing advantage. Jacksonville, rushing advantage. Which one is more significant? Probably Seattle's passing advantage, because Seattle has a good run defense. They rank third in rushing yards allowed per game. So I would give Seattle's passing advantage, a bigger grade than Jacksonville's rushing advantage. Seattle better at converting in the red zone, better on third down. They're not much worse at red zone attempts per game. Seattle has a slight sacks advantage, but Jacksonville has the turnover differential. Give me Seattle in this one. I'm going to stick, with the favorite. I usually don't do this. Is there any underdog? Let me just scroll through the chart here.
I don't know.
Is there any underdog that I even like today? I like Cincinnati to cover against Green Bay. But I feel like I got to pick a dog somewhere. Maybe it is going to be just a real chalky week.
It could.
And that's
I like it. I like it. I like the chalky week. Chalky.
And we can talk about this Tennessee-Vegas game here in a minute. I'm thinking I'll probably be leaning towards the Raiders in that one. And maybe even Baltimore, man. I mean, I know that the Rams have all these advantages, but there's got to be something that gives this week. And I think this could be a game, where Baltimore surprises people. But let's get back to – that's actually the next game that we'll talk about. Rams at Baltimore. DeAndre Hopkins. You said you don't like Trevor Lawrence rushing today better? Yes, thank you, better. I put Lawrence in multiple slips at all cash. You're welcome, Ivan. Jacksonville coming in, momentum, and Seahawks are due for a bad game. Another game that has me on the fence. Yeah. I do my best on these Sunday games, the noon slate, the 3:00 slate. And I miss some, I win some, lose some. Overall, though, I mean, I think we've been doing pretty good at pinpointing some player props in those games. Prime time's been where I feel the most comfortable in spreads and stuff like that. We got a tricky one tonight, though. We'll get into it here soon. But hey, JB, also, how much time do we have left? Are there some other guys that want to come up?
Let's see. What time is it? It's 9? No. Okay. It's 10. We still got like an hour and a half. Hour.
Okay. Cool. Just making sure we had enough time to talk about some stuff. And guys, maybe we can get into some stuff here in a little bit after we go through all these games. Maybe we can look at some other stuff. Okay, since we have some time. But let's talk about this Ravens and Baltimore game. Excuse me, Rams and Ravens game. DeAndre Hopkins needs 10 more receptions to move into 16th place on the all-time receptions leaders list. He would pass Hines Ward. Hopkins also needs 76 receiving yards to move into 18th place on the all-time receivers leaders list. That would pass Andre Reed. Davante Adams needs 4 receptions to move into 18th place on the all-time receptions leaders list. He would pass Randy Moss. So that makes me just automatically want to look to see, Rams, Baltimore. Go look at that game and see what Davante Adams' reception line is at. 4.5. So if you can get that down to 4, and if you like 4 for some reason, we'll talk about it. But if you like him to get 4+, he has a milestone that he can hit today. Once again, all-time receptions leaders list would pass Randy Moss if he gets 4 receptions. Davante Adams also needs 3 more touchdowns to tie 20th place on the all-time touchdowns leaders list. He would tie Barry Sanders. Derrick Henry needs 2 more touchdowns to move into 14th place on the all-time touchdowns leaders list. He would pass John Riggins and Antonio Gates. Matt Stafford has a 1-3 career record against Baltimore. Last that I checked, The Rams were favored by 7 points. Is this the game that everybody's going to be duped? Let's see. Lamar Jackson out today. Cooper Rush is starting. The Rams have a huge passing advantage. I mean, they rank second best in passing yards per game, and Baltimore ranks second worst in passing yards allowed per game. This could get ugly. Also, rushing yards allowed per game. I mean, we know Kyren Williams and what he can do in that backfield in Baltimore. I mean, just as a defensive whole, they've been terrible this year. They rank 29th in rushing yards allowed per game. One would have to think, if you like the Rams in this game, that they could call a higher percentage of rushing plays than what they are accustomed to. They do rank 7th in passing play percentage, so they do call a high percentage of passing plays relative to the other teams in the league. But if they get up early and often, you could see them calling a higher percentage of rushing plays than what they're accustomed to. And, statistically, they could have a good rushing game. Baltimore has allowed the 4th most rushing yards to running backs this season. Also, Baltimore ranks 24th in opponent rushing yards per attempt, so they've been allowing big gains through the ground. And Kyren Williams ranks 23rd in the NFL in rushing yards per attempt. So I could see him having some monumental gains in this game. Last that I checked, his over-under on rushing yards was 75.5. He's gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this season. He went over that in 66.66% of his games in 2024. He had 114 rushing yards in his only career game against Baltimore back in 2023. The game script says that he could get a good workload in this one. I think if you like Kyren Williams, I could definitely see him going over those rushing yards. Honestly, if this isn't a trap spot, it looks good. It looks better than a lot of other props that we've looked at today. Now, passing yards to quarterbacks is Baltimore's biggest defensive vulnerability, positional defensive vulnerability. Stafford, 258.5 passing yards, over under, last that I checked. He's gone over that in 3 out of 5 games this season, 8 out of 18 games in 2024, 3 out of 4 career games against Baltimore. It's tough for me to imagine if the Rams are up, let's say, 20-3 at halftime, that Stafford's going to get over those passing yards. I just don't know how much the Rams are going to have to pass or opt to pass in this game.
Right.
So it all comes down to, do you think Baltimore is going to compete in this game? Well, let's take a look here.
I don't think so.
The Rams' biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. Let me see if we have any. Henry getting 2 touchdowns today. Hey, thanks, Ivan. I appreciate you, man. Big shout out to Ivan there.
Yes, sir.
So the Rams' biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receiving yards allowed to wide receivers.
Wow.
Receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. So we already talked about the milestone that Hopkins can reach today. I think one of them is a little out of reach, 10 receptions today, but 76 receiving yards to move into 18th place on the all-time receiving yards leaders list seems manageable, but his over-under is 12.5 on receiving yards today, which he's gone over in 4 out of 5 games this season. He's gone over that in 13 out of 19 games in 2024, and he has gone over this line in 6 out of 6 career games against the Rams.
Oh, wow.
Against the LA Rams. He's also played against the St. Louis Rams. He's been in the league that long, and he went over that against the St. Louis Rams in his only game against them. He ranks 5th in target share on Baltimore. I think that's a good spot today. DeAndre Hopkins over the 12.5 receiving yards. Once again, that's the Rams' biggest positional defensive vulnerability. And that's all I got to say about that. Zay Flowers has also gone over his, last that I checked, it was 53.5 receiving yards was the over-under. He's gone over that in 4 out of 5 games this season. Went over that in 8 out of 17 in 2024. In his only career game against the Rams, he had 60 receiving yards and a touchdown. He was targeted the most, which was 5 times, during Cooper Rush's only start this year. He also leads the team in target share. If you like Zay Flowers, I think you got that working for you. From my understanding, though, Zay Flowers, I want to look up yards per completion, yards per catch, yards. Yeah, I'm going to look up Zay Flowers real quick on this list because from my understanding, yeah, he ranks 38th in yards per catch this season. Although so I would look for more of a possession guy here, which, Ravens, my guess is that Zay Flowers is not their possession guy. I'm seeing DeAndre Hopkins, is their possession receiver. So that's who I would really be looking at is Hopkins. I would be looking at Zay Flowers, absolutely. And I think he is worth consideration, but I would be looking at him way more if the Rams were allowing more yards per catch as a defensive unit. So the question is Baltimore going to be able to keep up in this game? Well, Derrick Henry, he's kind of been – he hasn't been great this year. And the Rams have been doing good at rushing yards allowed per game. They rank 10th best. I don't see, Derrick Henry necessarily having a huge game in this one. And the Rams are not allowing big chunks of yardage on the ground. They rank 3rd best in opponent rushing yards per attempt. So, I think this limits, it's going to come down to Cooper Rush, and something's telling me.
Oh, my God. The Jets, if this guy does not get fired, the head coach, oh, my God. They had literally 30 seconds on the 50-yard line, and they literally let the clock tick out while they're down 10-6 before half. Went for it on 4th down, got it. 30 seconds left in the game or in the half, and the coach just literally stops him, doesn't send the call in, and is smiling and lets the clock expire.
Jeez.
What the heck just happened?
But I think there's enough belief amongst the general public today on the Rams for good reason. Maybe this is the spot. And I might look like a fool for doing this, but hey, man, give me Baltimore. I don't feel great about it, but this is the first dog I'm taking predicting the cover here. I think this is the game. Man, Henry's getting 2 touchdowns today, says Ivan. You always like Zay Flowers in non-primetime games. Man, oh man. Do I really want to say this on live television? On live television, do I really want to say Baltimore +7? Ay. Because I do take pride in the picks that I give you guys, all right? I'm not trying to give you guys garb, but look, man, analytically, the Rams have an advantage basically everywhere. I don't see a rushing advantage for either team in this one. I would probably give the rushing advantage to the Rams, though. It's just like, is really everything like. Is there any other game that I think could dupe people today? Cincinnati, but I think people are kind of, they know Joe Flacco, and I don't look to just fade the public in every game, you know what I mean? But I always do think there's a game that's going to dupe people. Give me, man, hot take of the day: Ravens to cover. I don't know how they do it, but I would just assume that everybody's got the Rams money line in their parlays. And there was a game last week where people did it, right? And I called that one. Tennessee beating whoever they played. I'm getting those type of vibes in this Baltimore game. So yeah, give me Baltimore +7 for no good reason. Who do you like in that one, JB? If you're not there, we can go ahead and move on to the next game here. Tennessee at Las Vegas. Oh, who did you like? Did you like the Rams to win by 7+ in that game?
Yeah, I did. I said the start, or at the start of that. Yeah, I like the Rams winning by +7.
Yeah, give me Baltimore +7 here. Are they going to win? Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Like Tennessee last week. I mean, it's gutsy to take a team like Baltimore, but like, dude, Cooper Rush is okay. You know, you got to step up today, Cooper. All right, let's move on. Let me just go through my notes in that game real quick to see if I had any other mentions down here. Higbee receiving yards. I can see that. Baltimore ranks third worst in receiving yards allowed to tight ends. He's gone over that. The 17.5 receiving yard line in 2 out of 3 games this season, 3 out of 5 games in 2024, 2 out of 2 career games against Baltimore. Higbee has gone over those receiving yards, and he's the 4th leader in target share on the Rams. But I think he may have missed some time, so maybe that number's a little skewed. Maybe he's getting looked at a little bit more now. Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying, Ivan. Tennessee and Vegas. Speaking of Vegas, the head ref is Alec Kemp, and the Rams have a 6-1 career record. The Los Angeles Rams are 6-1 whenever he's the head ref, and the Ravens are 5-1. So. And, I mean, you could look at splits too, right? Like, is he more favorable towards road teams or home teams? I feel like you can find that information somewhere. Let's see. Last year, home team winning percentage was 82.35% when he was the ref. This year, it's 60% for home teams. Home team winning percentage. He's been a referee since 2018. There's only been one time. Well, even then, looks like he's favorable towards home teams. You may want to check that on me, but anyways, so I don't see like a true advantage for either team in regards to the ref today. But it looks like he has been more favorable to the home team. Tennessee and Vegas. The Raiders lead the all-time series 30-22 against Tennessee. The Las Vegas Raiders and Tennessee played one time, and Tennessee won that game. The Las Vegas Raiders and Tennessee has played once, and Tennessee won that game. The Raiders are favored by 4.5, and the over-under is 41.5. Brock Bowers, tight end for Vegas, is out today with Michael Mayer expected to return from concussion protocol and step in. I see that the Raiders have a big passing advantage in this game. I see that the Raiders have a big rushing advantage in this game. A good-sized third down conversion advantage, a slight red zone attempts per game advantage, a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage. The advantages that I see for Tennessee are smaller and fewer. I should say fewer advantages for Tennessee. Tennessee, slight red zone conversion advantage and a big turnover differential advantage. I think if you like Genty today, you're in a good spot.
I like the Titans.
I don't have enough historical data to do the research that I like to do on these rookies. But what I can say is that Tennessee, okay, they rank second worst in rushing yards allowed to running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee ranks 30th in rushing yards allowed per game. So they're third worst in rushing yards allowed per game. They allow the second most rushing yards to running backs. They allow the 32, 31, 32, fifth most rushing yards per attempt to opposing teams. And Genty ranks 28th best in the NFL in rushing yards per game, rushing yards per attempt. So I do think Genty can break out for some big runs in this game. Tennessee's pass defense, not only is it better in regards to yards allowed per game relative to the other teams in the league, not only is it better, but last season they were first. So maybe they just got off to a rough start this season and they clean it up, today or something. I don't know. But if I'm the Raiders, I'm looking to target that Tennessee rush defense. So if you guys like Genty today, I think he is in a great spot. Also, if you like, well, Raiders haven't been great at red zone conversion rate. I would be leaning more towards like Genty yards. I mean, I could see him getting the end zone, but yeah, I'd be really looking at those rushing yards. And that's Tennessee's biggest defensive vulnerability as a whole is rushing yards allowed to running backs. The Raiders' biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receptions allowed to wide receivers. So if you like, Ridley, Io Manor, DK receptions, any of these Tennessee receptions, I could see them getting them. Ridley had 6 receptions in his only career game against the Raiders. Last that I saw, his over-under on receptions was 2.5, and he leads the team in target share. That's probably where I would look. Also, Ridley ranks 4th in yards per catch, and the Raiders rank 26 in opponent yards per completion. So I could see Ridley, man, having a big gain or two in this one, especially since Tennessee is projected to lose this game. They're expected to be trailing, forced to pass the ball, which could open up a few more looks for Ridley. And Tennessee calls a high percentage of passing plays. They rank 6th in the NFL in passing play percentage. So, yeah, I think Ridley is a good candidate to do well here in this one. What
do you guys know about Ja'Marr Chase and Zay
What?
Flowers? They're both Zay Flowers and Ja'Marr Chase are both listed as questionable.
Ja'Marr Chase, yeah, let's go look at that real quick
Sounds
again.
like Ja'Marr Chase might not be playing.
So I'm seeing that he is expected to play today. And this was at 7:02 a.m. Central Time, according to FanDuel, the Daily Fantasy app. I think they do a pretty good job on with the player updates. I don't think any source is necessarily perfect, but I think throughout my years, man, and I think they do a great job. Okay. And who's the other guy that you were thinking of? Zay Flowers or Zay Jones?
Flowers.
Because I know Zay Jones is questionable. Also, Kyler Murray, I don't know if you know, JB's not expected to play today. Supposed to be Jacoby Brissett. But you were
Good
looking at
start
Zay.
might be Jordan Love today against Cincinnati.
So Zay Flowers, I'm seeing that he's expected to suit up in this game. He's
Okay.
questionable, but expected to suit up. So let's get back to the prediction in this game. Boy, oh boy.
Am I crazy for benching Patrick Mahomes and starting Jordan Love?
What?
I said, am I crazy for benching Patrick Mahomes and starting Jordan Love?
I think you are.
You think I'm crazy for doing that? Cincinnati has a horrible defense.
I understand.
And Patty's only projected to get 20 points, whereas Jordan Love is at 19.
Here's what I don't like about Jordan Love today, and we'll get into that game in just a second. Let's make our prediction in this game because it's the next game that we're going to talk about. Give me Tennessee. Vegas ranks 22nd in passing yards allowed per game. I think Tennessee is going to have to throw successfully. Rushing attack for Tennessee. They rank 28th in rushing yards per game. I don't expect Tennessee to have too much success against the 13th rushing yard allowed per game Vegas defense. They're more vulnerable through the air. Tennessee likes to pass the ball. It's going to come down to Cam Ward again. And I like the Tennessee turnover differential advantage. Give me Tennessee to cover this one.
I got Tennessee too.
Plus that 4.5. Let's move on to this game, JB. The Cincinnati at Green Bay game. So, I'm a little Genty rushing yards at 75.5. So you're saying Cam Warren going to throw the ball today? Yeah. I'm thinking Cam's going to have to throw the ball today. Ivan. Genty rushing yards. Yeah, I could see him hitting that. I'm not as good with the player props with the rookies, but I think he's in a great spot. So here's the thing about this Cincinnati-Green Bay game is, do you think Cincinnati is going to compete in this game? What type of game do you think it's going to be? Like, look, man, let's look at some stuff here. So Green Bay is favored, last that I saw, to win this game by 14.5 points. That's what the line is.
Yeah. Joe
Flacco expected to step in today. I do like Cincinnati to cover here. The Packers have never, throughout their history, the all-time series is tied 7-7. The last two games have gone to overtime. The Packers have never in their history beaten the Cincinnati Bengals by 15-plus points. Joe Flacco has a 2-3 career record against Green Bay. This is his first game. I think the team is going to rally around Joe Flacco. You know what I mean? Big toe Joe, man.
Man, that dude's a stand-up quarterback, just like Joe, the other Joe. And we see where he's sitting. He's sitting on the bench watching another Joe come in and take his job because he couldn't stay healthy because that line. That defense doesn't change what Jordan Love could do towards it. You know what I mean? It's the worst, second worst, something like that. I know Baltimore might have a worse defense, but Cincinnati's defense is not good. I'm not sold that Joe coming in can be Superman and save these guys today. Just for the simple, dude, you're gonna have, dude, they got Michael Parsons breathing down his neck all day. You know what I mean? I know Cleveland beat them. Cleveland's got a defense, man. Cleveland actually got a little bit of offensive power with the running game, Judkins.
Yes.
I just don't see. I do not see Cincinnati being able to do anything against the Packers. Defensively, maybe offensively, but that offensive line is. There's a reason why Joe's not there. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't see. I don't. I usually pick this kind of stuff. These games right here with the switches. I don't like it. I don't like it today.
Um, yeah, you make good points, JB. And here, let me get to the reason why I'm a little hesitant on Jordan Love today. Yes, Cincinnati ranks 32, 31, 34th worst. They allow the fourth most passing yards per game. But Green Bay calls the fourth most rushing plays out of any team in the league. And, Cincinnati is not good at defending against that rush. And I think, the fact that Cincinnati allows the second most rushing yards to running backs, I think Josh Jacobs could absolutely feast in this game. Now, Cincinnati's been doing a pretty good job at limiting big gains. But, Josh Jacobs over under rushing yards, 81.5. He's gone over in 2 out of 4 games this season. Went over in 33% of his games in 2024, and he's gone over that line in 2 out of 3 career games against Cincinnati. He's never had a touchdown against Cincinnati. So if you think that Green Bay is going to kind of run away with this game, I think Josh Jacobs is the guy that you got to look at. But I don't think that's the case, man. I like Joe Flacco. I don't think this Cincinnati team is going to let a new veteran quarterback, and I don't think Flacco is going to be too keen to doing this as well. I don't think they're just going to let Joe Flacco come in here on his first day and just not put up a fight. This guy is a veteran quarterback. He knows that he has to get the ball. He knows that this offensive line is not the greatest, and he knows that Green Bay ranks 9th in sacks per game. Maybe not that exact number, but he knows that he's, going to be under some duress today. I think he's aware of that. He's going to be looking to, use his veteran leadership and his veteran knowledge to keep Cincinnati in this game. So, JB, that kind of leads me to Jordan Love a little bit, right? So I think that Cincinnati is going to hang around. I think if you think Cincinnati is going to hang around in this game, I think there's a better chance for Jordan Love to have a great game than if you think the Packers are going to run with this. I don't like Jordan Love's numbers as much because I think Green Bay will just continuously run the ball. Pretty much for the most part. I'm not saying Jordan Love won't throw the ball at all. He will, but I think Mahomes tonight against that Detroit defense, passing yards allowed per game by Detroit, they rank 12th. So that's not
I think prime time to start Mahomes is week 7. Get Rashee Rice back. Got all of his weaponry.
And I'm just not a big Jordan
defense.
Love fan, man. And
I get it. I get that.
Running good this year.
Yeah, I get that. But see, here's the thing: is Detroit's got a really good defense and a great pass rush. We got a rookie left tackle. You're going up to Aiden Hutchinson. This is going to be his real first big task, right? They got their 1-2 punch with their rushers over there. You know what I'm saying? I just think that they got a better team.
Dude, honestly, yeah, Jordan Love has a better matchup. It's tough, man. It's tough, and you know about Mahomes probably more than I do. Being a Chiefs fan, watching all those games, I know you know his tendencies a little bit more. The Chiefs' tendencies a little bit more. So I take your word seriously in that regard. But, now that I'm thinking about it, JB, and the fact that you're kind of doubting Mahomes a little bit today, maybe Jordan Love is the way to go. Because I also think Cincinnati's going to stay within this game, stay within arm's reach. And I think that opens up more opportunity for Jordan Love to have a good game. Now, somebody that I'm looking at is Tucker Kraft and Dobbs. Right. So Cincinnati, allows the fourth most receiving yards to tight ends and the second most receptions. Tucker Kraft, last that I saw, his over-under was 49.5. He's gone over that in half of his games this season, only 33% of his games in 2024, and he's never played a game against Cincinnati, but he does lead this team in target share, and Cincinnati is vulnerable to that position. And then receptions, pretty much the same data. It is the same data with the receptions. Dobbs, the reason why I mentioned Dobbs is now Cincinnati's actually been doing decently at containing wide receiver receiving yards, but they rank 27th in opponent yards per completion. So teams are getting big gains when they're throwing on Cincinnati. So I think Kraft and Dobbs are two guys that you got to look at here for the Packers if you think that Cincinnati is going to hang around in this game. And I do. So I'd be leaning more towards Kraft and then Dobbs. All right. In regards to receiving yards. Although I think they could both have success. But you got to one would think that if Cincinnati does compete in this game, that it might be like a lower scoring game. Or maybe it's a shootout. But I would think that, maybe Green Bay's offense isn't clicking a whole lot because Green Bay has a solid defense, right? They rank 11th in passing yards allowed per game. They rank second in rushing yards allowed per game. I mean, Green Bay's defense, Cincinnati on paper has no chance at rushing the ball well here today with Chase Brown. I mean, they rank last, Cincinnati does, in rushing yards per game, and Green Bay ranks second in rushing yards allowed per game. Cincinnati's going to have to pass the ball if they want success here.
Yeah, I agree. What's their we'll get there. Never mind.
Green Bay looks like they're kind of vulnerable to the tight end in regards to receptions allowed and receptions allowed to running backs. So maybe Chase Brown gets active in the passing game. Maybe Flacco hits one of the 20 tight ends that Cincinnati has.
He's probably going to be making a connection right away with the top wide receivers, to be honest with you. If they're going to do anything over there, I expect a lot of play action, kind of die down that pass rush, Expect Chase Brown to have some type of game in this. When what's-his-face has always had success, Flacco, there's always been a strong running game behind him. You go back to his days with in Baltimore when he was over there with Cleveland. He's always had a running game everywhere Joe goes. So I see them, and Cincinnati can get it together. That line,
Now, I'm looking at this game, JB, that Joe Flacco played against Green Bay earlier this year. The most targeted player was his tight end, Njoku. And even Harold Fannin was he had 4 targets. So he was tied for third in targets. So he was really targeting tight ends against the Green Bay Packers. And that's where I see, kind of where the Packers are a little vulnerable. In regards to wide receivers, they've been defending against wide receivers well this year. So I have to lean. I see what you're saying, but I got to lean towards, Flacco targeting the tight ends for Cincinnati a little bit more here. And even Jerome Ford had 4 targets, running back. So I think, Judkins had 2 targets. So I do think Chase Brown can be active in that passing game. I'm a little worried about the receiving yards for Chase Brown. But if you like his receptions for some reason, guys, and let's go see real quick. Targets, Chase Brown, 22 targets this year. I know he's got a new quarterback right now, but, I do, and he has a high catch rate, 18 receptions off 22 targets. So I'd be looking at Chase Brown's receptions in this one. I think that's guys, before you in the live, can you let me know if Ollie Gordon of the Dolphins good for any props? Ollie Gordon. So yeah, man. For right off the top of my head here, Ivan, I'm thinking Ollie Gordon anytime touchdown. From my understanding, he gets a lot of red zone carries. Is that? Do you know anything about that, JB? Here's the thing about Miami. Is that
Alibaba Gordon. Yeah, dude's fire. I like him. I
so?
like him
Ollie
on anything. That
Gordon.
seems to
Now,
be
my
their number one guy on the ground, especially of recent.
So Miami doesn't get into the red zone a whole lot. They rank 25th in red zone attempts per game, but when they do get into the red zone, they are good at converting. Even though the Chargers defense is good, and we mentioned that earlier. Something that we could look at, Ivan, is rushing yard or rushing touchdowns allowed by the Chargers this year. Ooh, they've allowed the fewest. Let's go look at Ollie Gordon real quick. And it is tougher for me to pinpoint these rookie props. I know I keep mentioning it. Receiving, rushing yards. I don't like him in the receiving game. He's only had one touchdown, 38 rushing yards at Buffalo. The Chargers' rush defense is decent. JB, I mean, what would you look at for Ollie Gordon, if anything? I mean, I don't really like anything. If I had to skim something though, Ivan, it'd be anytime touchdown.
Yeah, I like the anytime touchdown.
And I would really look at how many opportunities he's getting when Miami's in the red zone. And that's where these red zone targets come in. It's red zone carries. The source that I'm looking at has that information locked, right? So that's what a lot of this comes down to, is what information do you have access to? Gesicki yards or receptions? Mike Gesicki for Cincinnati. Yeah, I think, let me go look at his line real quick, Ivan. I do like Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati tight ends are worth looking at today. So Gesicki over under, what was your question? Receiving yards or receptions? Let's go look. Gesicki, tight end. Probably receptions, because Green Bay is more vulnerable to the receptions. They rank 9th worst in tight end receptions allowed this year. Green Bay has also had a bye week. So when I look at the receptions allowed to tight ends, that's not per game. That's throughout the whole season. And the fact that a lot of these teams have played one more game than Green Bay has played tells you that Green Bay is pretty vulnerable so far to tight end receptions. And once again, Flacco really targeted those tight ends when he played the Packers earlier this year. Oh, man, I'm actually really starting to like the Gesicki stuff here. Over under 2.5 receptions. Gesicki. And let's go take a look real quick at his history. He's only gone over that one time out of 5 games this season. So that's not good, but he's got a new quarterback today. Gesicki receptions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Went over that in 11 out of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17 games in 2024. Did Burrow play the whole season last year, JB?
All last year, I think he might have missed like a game,
Okay.
something like that at the very beginning. I know he was dealing with wrist issues.
So we had a
Early
capable
on.
quarterback is kind of where I was leading
Yeah.
to. He's had a capable quarterback like Flacco, capable quarterback here. And then let's see if he's played any games against Green Bay throughout his history and see if he's had 3+ receptions in those games. Only had 1 in that game. So he's 0 for 1. I think the historical data is a little less important here. But the reason why I like to look at that is because if it is good, then I feel even more comfortable, about the play. So he's gone under that line in 2 career games. His only 2 career games against Green Bay. But, I think he goes over it today. Gesicki, receiving yards 21.5. How many times did he get over that last season? 22 or more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the same amount as the receptions. Green Bay hasn't been as vulnerable to the receiving yards to tight ends as they are to the receptions. I like the receptions, man. Chase Brown, 3.5 receptions. Let's go take a look. Once again, Green Bay, they ranked 6th worst in receptions allowed to running backs. They've also played one less game than a lot of these other teams, which tells you how vulnerable they are to that running back reception. And you said it's at what, Ivan? 3.5? 3.5 over under for Chase Brown. 1, 2. Joe Burrow targeted his tight ends and running backs against the Packers this year. I think he's, that's what he's got to do today. Chase Brown's gone over that line in 2 out of 5 games this season. How many times has he had 3+ last year? Or 4+? Was it 3.5? So 4+. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 games out of what? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16 last year. So just in that regard, I think Gesicki is the better play. And then let's see if he has any history against Green Bay. He hasn't never played against Green Bay. I think he could do it. I think he could absolutely do it here today. But I like Gesicki's more. Even though Green Bay has been more vulnerable, I could see them both hitting, man. I could see them both hitting. If you can get the Brown to 3+ receptions, I think that could make a world of difference. Especially if you're going to be playing Gesicki 3+ receptions. There's only so many receptions that can go around. If you have 2 guys in the same games that need receptions, it's tougher. It's tougher. If I need, let's say I need, this guy for Cincinnati to get 3+, and this other guy to get 3+, and this other guy to get 3+. There's only so many receptions that can go around. So I would probably choose one or the other and not play them together. I could see them both hitting in the same game, especially if you get that line at 3 on both of them, or maybe even take Gesicki's down to 2, or maybe Chase Brown's down to 2, whichever one, and then go 3 or both at 3. But I think both at the over the lines is really starting to cut it thin. Cut it close. But yeah, give me Cincinnati to cover here. JB, are you on that same wavelength, or did you said you like Green Bay to win by 15+, JB?
Yeah.
Okay. San Francisco, how many games do we have left? We got 2 more games, guys. San Francisco and Tampa Bay. San Francisco leads the all-time series 21-7 against Tampa Bay. Mike Evans is out. Mac Jones is expected to start. Purdy is out. Quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy is out. Mac Jones is expected to start. Bucky Irving, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, out. Mike Evans, wide receiver, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, out. Pearsall, wide receiver for the 49ers, out. I also saw Jennings was questionable, but projected to play. I see that San Francisco has a slight passing advantage in this game. I see that Tampa Bay has a slight rushing advantage, but Bucky Irving is out. So does Tampa Bay really have a rushing advantage? I mean, Rachaad White isn't bad, you know what I mean? But, I think that does make a difference. I do still, even though with him being out, I do think that Tampa Bay still has a rushing advantage. And what that really comes down to is San Francisco's rushing yards allowed per game compared to Tampa Bay's. Tampa Bay ranks 8th best in rushing yards allowed per game this season, and San Francisco ranks 15th. So Tampa Bay has the better rush defense. I know when you see a big name like Christian McCaffrey, you might be like, what do you mean? Like Christian McCaffrey is better than Rachaad White? Yeah, but San Francisco ranks 28th in rushing yards per game. And I don't necessarily think it got you looking at receptions for everybody. Yeah. So Tampa Bay, so let's backtrack. Christian McCaffrey, I don't necessarily think he's going to get it done on the ground today, but here's a prop that I like. Christian McCaffrey over 51.5 receiving yards. Tampa Bay ranks 3rd worst in receiving yards allowed to running backs. McCaffrey, last that I saw, over under 51.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in 5 out of 5 games this season. He only went over that in 1 out of 4 games in 2024 and only in 3 out of 10 career games against Tampa Bay. But I think he's in a good spot. But here's a different spot that I would maybe look at is Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown. He's gone over that in 6 out of 10 career games against Tampa Bay. And 4 of those games, he had multi-touchdown games. So let's go look at San Francisco's conversion. Red zone attempts per game. San Francisco ranks 7th. Red zone conversion rate, San Francisco could be better, but Tampa Bay isn't good in regards to opponent red zone conversion rate. I think Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown, is definitely worth a look today, possibly 2. Flacco completions. How many did he have in that game? He had 21 completions in that game against Green Bay. What's the line at? Let's go look. I don't like his complete. I think it's going to go under what he had that last time. Oh, wow. The Jets got a safety on the Broncos. That game's wild. Let's go look at the completions. Passing props. Completions for Flacco, 22.5. So one would think that Flacco might not see as many passing attempts today because Cleveland's defense is much better than Cincinnati's. So I think based on that effect alone, Flacco was able to throw the ball more, right? There were more times he was able to have the ball because Green Bay was punting. And, I mean, how many punts did Green Bay have in that game? 5 total punts in that game. Looks like a turnover or 2. So, I think that the Cleveland defense created more opportunity for Flacco to complete passes, and I don't think he's going to have that opportunity here today. So, I think he's going to have to make most of what he gets, and his favorite target in that game was a tight end, and I see that here again today with Gesicki. So that would be just the way I'd lean, man. I mean, I would think that Green Bay can string together at least some drives where they're kicking a little bit more field goals in this game than they were against Cincinnati, or converting another touchdown or two.
Yeah. Yeah, Jets are up 11-10. That's crazy.
T. Higgins worries me a little bit here, Ivan, because Green Bay ranks 4th best in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers, 7th best in receptions allowed to wide receivers, although that number could be a little better than what it looks on paper, because Green Bay has played one less game than a lot of these teams. And this isn't by per game. This is by overall this season. That's what they rank, 4th best in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. So, yeah, I could see it, man. I could see it, but Gesicki, man, is the way I'm leaning there. But back to that San Francisco game, Rachaad White. We'll talk about him. I think Christian McCaffrey, guys, anytime touchdown. Really got to look at that there. And then, Tampa Bay's biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receiving yards allowed to running backs. So, like I stated earlier, Tampa Bay has a good rush defense, and San Francisco hasn't been running the ball good this season. But San Francisco, I expect Mac Jones. And let's go look at Mac Jones real quick, because San Francisco has had 2 quarterbacks playing this season, So let's go look at this game against the Rams and see how many times he targeted McCaffrey through the air. 9 times. 9 times. And that's the biggest defensive vulnerability for Tampa Bay. So I think, and McCaffrey had 82 yards in that game against the Rams. So I think, and let's go look at the Rams real quick. Let's go look at the Rams and how they defend against running backs in regards to receiving yards allowed to running backs. They don't rank top 10 or bottom 10 in that category in receiving yards allowed to running backs. So I would think McCaffrey would have a pretty good game here through the air, considering that's Tampa Bay's biggest positional defensive vulnerability. And then San Francisco's biggest positional defensive vulnerability is receptions allowed to running backs, which brings me to Rachaad White, over under 3.5 receptions. He's gone over in 6 out of 17 games in 2024, which isn't great. It's only 2 out of 5 games this season, but you would think that he would get a bigger workload today with Bucky being out. Also, Rachaad White has gone over that line in 3 out of 3 career games against San Francisco. Every time he's played San Francisco, he's gone over that line. He's had a touchdown in 2 out of 3 career games against San Francisco. I could see Rachaad White and McCaffrey getting into the end zone in this one. I would have to lean more towards McCaffrey, simply because San Francisco's are holding their opponents in the red zone at a much better rate than Tampa Bay. Although, and San Francisco gets into the red zone more often. Okay. But, yeah, I think both of them could definitely get in the end zone today. As far as the spread in this one, San Francisco, slight passing advantage. Tampa Bay, slight rushing advantage. San Francisco, a good-sized third down conversion advantage, a slight red zone conversion advantage, a slight red zone attempts per game advantage. Tampa Bay, big turnover differential advantage. I was looking at the correlation between turnover differential advantage in the games last week. Teams in week 5 went 7-5 when they had a turnover differential advantage. So it wasn't the end all be all, right? but I think there were some other things here that I like with San Francisco. Give me San Francisco. Give me San Francisco to cover. So this is kind of weird, right? I was going with all the favorites earlier in the earlier games, and now, we're kind of going with these underdogs since that Baltimore game. So, JB, who do you like in that one? San Fran to win by, Tampa Bay to win by 4+ points, or San Francisco?
Tampa Bay.
You like Tampa Bay to win by 4+. Give me San Francisco to win this game or lose by no more than 3. And then let's get on to this night game, JB. Let's get on to the night game here. Detroit at Kansas City. Detroit at Kansas City, primetime game. So, I've been doing good in the primetime games this year. But 2 of those games, man, I lost in a game that Kansas City was involved in. So Kansas City hasn't been my good primetime team this year. If it weren't for me picking Kansas City in a couple of those games, I'd be almost perfect in primetime games. And I sure hope you guys don't consider these London games primetime, because I don't. Maybe if they went the other way, I would. But no, I mean, I haven't been doing the greatest in international games. I mean, the Jets here, and I thought it may be too good to be true with this Broncos and Jets game. I mean, I really like Denver in this game. And they're struggling, man. The Jets are looking like they may pull away with it. But look, man, I got to go with the Chiefs again here. I thought the Chiefs were going to get it done against the Chargers week 1. I thought the Chiefs were going to get it done last week against Jacksonville in primetime, and they didn't.
Man.
But and I honestly, I'm looking at the data here, and Detroit honestly probably looks like the pick. If you want me to be completely honest with you guys.
I mean, you look at more than just the data, the statistical data. It goes all the way down to Jared Goff has never lost to Mahomes. Or the Chiefs. I don't think in his career. Mahomes has never beaten Jared Goff. Then it goes to like Detroit. Kansas City is like good on primetime games and prime night games, but Detroit has beat them on prime and during the game in Kansas City and away. There's more if you break it down and get into those little things that we do on that little cool quirks. They own the series.
Kansas City leads the all-time series 9-6 against Detroit. Kelsey needs 6 receptions to move into 12th place on the all-time receptions leaders list. He would pass Steve Smith. Kansas City really needs this game. I see that Kansas City has a slight passing advantage in this game. I see that Detroit has a big rushing advantage. Kansas City has a decent-sized third down conversion advantage. Detroit, slight red zone conversion advantage, slight red zone attempts per game advantage. Excuse me, I need some water. Got the hiccups here. It's like red zone attempts per game advantage, a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage, and a slight turnover differential advantage. The biggest positional defensive vulnerability that I see with Detroit is receiving yards allowed to wide receivers. There was a player that I like in this game for wide receivers. JB, let me know if you like it too. Juju, over 24.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in 3 out of 5 games this season. Now, he's only gone over that in 3 out of 17 games in 2024. But this guy had a monster game in his only career game against Detroit. He had 7 receptions, 193 yards, and a touchdown. That was in his rookie season, and it was his single game receiving record throughout his whole career. Wow. So, yeah, historically he's done good against these Lions in that game. That would be somebody that I'd be looking at. My next guy that I'd be looking at out of all the Chiefs wide receivers is got to be Thornton, man. Over under 24.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in 4 out of 5 games this season. He could pick that up in one catch. I mean, this guy ranks first in the NFL in receiving yards per catch, and Detroit ranks 23rd in opponent yards per completion. What were you saying, JB?
Clear 80 jerseys out. It's time for Tyquan Thornton to light it up. I mean, you see it. I mean, dude went what last week? He was targeted 3 times. He had 3 receptions for 90 yards. Like, it's crazy. He's on average catching 30 yards a catch. You know, on last night. I mean, majority of his receptions are like 24 plus yards. You know what I mean, per reception or something like that. Dude's just going crazy. I think it's a great pickup, like you said, with the differential. They still have Rice, or not Rice. I keep on always Worthy. They always have Worthy over there, and I think it's gonna be a fun ride.
Hollywood Brown ranks first in target share on this team, and then it's Kelsey, and then it's Thornton, and then Juju, and I mean Worthy, but Worthy missed some time, right? So, they have a lot of different receivers that Mahomes can spread the ball to. I think, historically, I like the fact that Juju had a monster game in his rookie year, but that was a long time ago. Really, I mean, Thornton, dude, this Thornton guy is good.
Yeah. I've been saying it, man, and it's he's that guy that you want. If you want, I mean, there's really no such thing as a lock, but if you want a lock, you know what I'm saying? Like this guy has shown up and caught. I think every catch, like I said, has been over top. I mean, he's had a couple that were under 20 yards, I think, but dude's just he eats yards up.
Something that I would look at too, rushing plus receiving and Abuka. Let's go look at that here in just a second, Ivan. So Jared Goff rushing yards over under 0.5. I have to lean towards the over on this one. That is the Chiefs' biggest positional defensive vulnerability. Rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. They've allowed the third most this season. Goff has gone over that in 2 out of 5 games this season. He went 11 and 18 in 2024 on that line. He's gone over that in 1 out of 2 career games against the Chiefs. And he actually had a rushing touchdown against the Chiefs in one of those games. So, yeah, Goff rushing for 1+ yard. I like it.
Yeah, Buka, anything.
I think Gibbs and Montgomery, not just in the running game, guys. I mean, Chiefs haven't been good at defending against the run this season. The Chiefs have also been allowing huge gains to teams when they rush the ball against them. But I think there's a statistic out there that they haven't allowed like a 100-yard rusher in 31 games.
Yes, sir.
But the Lions have a dual-headed lion, if you will. They have a dual-headed lion in that backfield with Montgomery and Gibbs, and they don't necessarily need, one of them to get 100+ rushing yards. They can both, get.
I mean, that's happened. That's been happening all year.
Right,
you know
right.
What I'm saying? And that, I mean, we've held all these top running backs week after week. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be, I mean, you're talking Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry together. Yeah, obviously they're getting over 100 yards, but neither one of them are doing. We're keeping them both in check. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing is with these guys, we got to play defense differently because we're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna have that quarterback spy out there like we have been. You know what I mean? Because we're not playing the same type of style quarterback this week. They got that ground and speed, that Knuckles and Sonic, that zip zap, and they dip dap. Right? I mean, like them guys are You guys are beasts, man. Last time I remember seeing something like that was Chris Johnson and Lendell White, out there in Tennessee.
Yeah,
But though, I mean, that was a little bit bigger and a little bit faster, but still, these boys right here, they're no joke.
Ronnie Brown and who was it? Ricky Williams, Wildcat offense.
Check it, poppin'.
But yeah, Ivan, back to McCaffrey, dude. McCaffrey, I didn't necessarily like his rushing yards in this one because Tampa Bay has been good at defending against rushing yards allowed per game. And San Francisco hasn't been rushing the ball good this year. San Francisco also calls a high percentage of passing plays relative to the other teams in the league. They're projected to be trailing at some point in this game, probably. I like McCaffrey receiving probably only, and then Abuka for Tampa Bay with Mike Evans being out. I think, that is definitely upside. San Francisco didn't rank in the top 10 or bottom 10 in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers, receptions allowed to wide receivers. I do think, Tampa Bay isn't going to be able to run the ball as effectively today without Bucky. Not saying that Rachaad White isn't good, but I was leaning more towards Rachaad White's receptions since San Francisco ranks fourth worst in receptions allowed to running backs. But yeah, I think Abuka, could have a good game here for sure. Kind of like JB says, Abuka everything. We have a guy in the Not Move podcast. Am I wrong, JB? Southgate's been talking Abuka up since preseason, So this guy.
Yeah. Who was it? There's actually. Oh man, there was a guy. I can't. Man, we just said it last time, but yeah, he's been talking Abuka up. But there's somebody else in the podcast, and they were calling. Oh, Jimmy. Jimmy's been calling Abuka before the draft and was like Abuka, and it's just showing. And he got drafted. He was like Abuka will be the offensive player of the year. He'll be or the rookie of the year. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna be the offensive rookie of the year. He's gonna be the best. He's gonna be. I'm just telling you. And you see what's happening. Proof's in the pudding. Man knows what he's talking about.
Also, I mean, Tampa Bay is good at passing the ball. Believe it or not, man, San Francisco ranks first in passing yards per game, which is actually pretty crazy now that I'm looking at it. The fact that they've had Mac Jones in there for a little bit. But, yeah, Tampa Bay ranks sixth in passing yards per game. Both of these defenses are better. San Francisco rush. Both of these defenses are San Francisco ranks 14th in passing yards allowed per game, 15th in rushing yards allowed per game. I think Tampa Bay's biggest strength in this game is passing the ball. Now, the line suggests and the passing play percentage suggests that Tampa Bay may be able to call a few more rushing plays than what they're accustomed to today. But, I like Abuka, man. I like Abuka. I don't love it, but I can see that. I like it. I like Abuka's receiving props more than McCaffrey's rushing props, but I like McCaffrey's receiving props, I think, more than anything else in this game. Anyways, back to the prediction with the Chiefs game, JB. The Chiefs have burned me 2 times in primetime games this year. Go ahead and let them burn me again. The only reason why I'm going with them is because I know how bad they need this win.
Here's the thing: the Chiefs are not like I don't want to okay. The Chiefs lose this game.
Yeah.
Okay. If
they'll be fine.
If the Chiefs were to lose this game,
yeah,
and then get Rice back and lose again, week 8, that's a must-win game.
Yeah.
Week 8's a must-win game, and basically here on out, it's a must-win game. I gotta say that going back to back in 2023, the Chiefs went 2-4 and went 12-5 for the rest of the year. or it went total of a 12-5 record on the year after starting 2-4. Went 12-5 on the year and made the AFC West championship. And I mean, they ended up losing it to, Joe Burrow and them. Or not 2023, it was 2021, but whatever. You know what I mean? I just think it's kind of like it's one of them type of year scenarios. Like you got a lot of Eagles fans who are out there like, oh man, it's 2023 all over again. I think it's something like that with Kansas City. It just, I just think that we can afford to lose this one. I think the pressure really starts once we get Rice. Once that hits, you have to win. If the defense is not performing, that's where you got to go put this guy who's been sitting out a year and a half. You got to go put that pressure on them wide receivers. Brashard Smith, telling you this week, calling and again, man, Brashard Smith, 24, Kansas City. He's getting the ball more and more. Expect by like week, I'm gonna call it by week 10, he's the premier rusher in Kansas City. Pacheco's number 2.
Yeah, I mean, dude,
that's just what they're gonna need to get into that playoff.
I know I've been good in primetime games and everything, but this was not one that I would necessarily take my word on this one. I'm leaning towards the Chiefs in this one, and I do not feel good about it. I do not feel good. And I think the only reason why, I'm going with the Chiefs is because they've already burnt me twice. So just go ahead and burn me again. The other 2 times that I thought the Chiefs were going to take care of business, they didn't. And this is actually the first time where I don't think the Chiefs take care of business. So give me the Chiefs to win this one by 3+ points. JB, you like the Lions in this one?
Yeah, I like the Lions. Last night, we did the Chiefs-Lions preview with TikTok Tisha. She's on TikTok. She's a Lions fan. I picked Detroit. It was like 30 to what did I say? 34 to 27, I think is what I picked. I think that's what I picked because the Lions 34-27, I believe. It might be. I might be off.
All right. Well, give me a a correct score in this Lions and Chiefs game. Over under 52.5. Give me Chiefs to win by a final score of. Let me look into my crystal ball here. 31-27 Chiefs. Anyways, that's about all I got. You love the over in that one, Ivan? Yeah, that sounds good, man.
Yeah, the over's probably going to be there.
I think Brashard Smith, I saw a line on him. Brashard Smith, you called him last week, JB. Good call. His over-under on receptions tonight is 1.5. Detroit has allowed the 10th most receptions to running backs this season.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Bump it up.
And, that's about all I got. Tomorrow we'll do a segment on the Monday Night Football games. There's 2 games on, Buffalo at Atlanta, and then there's Chicago at Washington. Should be a great show. I'm feeling good about one thing. It might be too good to be true, but, I mean, it looks real good. I think there's going to be, some fun things to target in this game, in those games, as I'm just browsing this. But something that really popped out to me, man, is we can talk about it tomorrow. But dude, Krosky Merritt, guys. I do just want to mention this real quick. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but hear me out real quick. Krosky Merritt ranks first in rushing yards per carry this season, and nobody allows more rushing yards per attempt than Chicago. And Washington has a high rushing play percentage compared to the other teams in the league. So I think this is a dream spot for Krosky Merritt. Community parlay. Yeah, let's go for it, man. Community parlay. I like the two. I like the two. I like the Tua rushing yards, man. Is that my favorite play today, though? Out
I
of
like the Rashard
props,
Smith receptions.
Rashard Smith receptions over the 1.5. JB.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let me browse through this real quick. Blessed up, dude. Give me the Gasecki. What was it? Over 2.5 receptions. That was my favorite play that I liked. I think blessed up. Gasecki. Yeah, Gasecki over 2.5 receptions. McCaffrey receiving yards. McCaffrey touchdown. McCaffrey over the 51.5 receiving yards. McCaffrey touchdown. I'm trying to figure out something else. I'm maybe just really stuck out to me on these games today. The Tua rushing yard over 3.5 rushing yards. And I mean the Tyquan Thornton receiving yards. I think it was 24.5. Looks pretty solid. What was it? Hopkins over the 12.5 receiving yards. There's some other stuff I mentioned during the show, but just browsing through these lines just one more time. That's what I was really liking in these games today. So, yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow and break down the 2 Monday Night Football games. JB, did you have any other words?
Yeah. Let me get to this deal right.
Thanks for joining today, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Good luck to everybody.
Right here, QR code up in the left-hand corner of the screen, top of the corner of the screen. If you guys click that, we got mybookie.ag. It gets you 100% your deposits for the first 3 deposits. Sorry. And also MLB shop. Oop. We got with the MLB shop up there. Click the QR or snapshot of the QR code. Get all your merchandise, cards, baseball cards, memorabilia, all that through the MLB shop. NFL shop, same thing. Snap it. Holidays are coming. Get your gear. Help support the Not Move podcast. We don't. We it's just all towards it. We sponsored with them or affiliates with them, as well as I haven't got this one up, but also Walmart. We have a Walmart app, and we are on there as well. It is in the bio on the YouTube app. You can go and click that. It's also in the the link tree. You get all your products through Walmart online shopping. You can go pick it up, or they can deliver it to you. If there's an item on there that you need that we don't have on there, send us a message. We'll put it on there. Get what you need. As well as the Not Move store. Get all your Not Move merchandise here today. Left-hand corner of the screen. Snap it. Go shopping. It is Not Move Podcast Shop.fourthwall.com.
All right. Sounds good, man. Any other things you want to mention, JB?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, thanks for joining again, everybody. Good luck today. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay not moved.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.